After hearing this lamentation and seeing the pitiable condition of the citizens, King Prithu contemplated this matter for a long time to see if he could find out the underlying causes. There's no purport. Text 13. Iti vyavasito bujja pragrihita sarasana sandade vishikam bhumhe krudhas tripura ha yatha. Having arrived at a conclusion, the king took up his bow and arrow and aimed them at the earth, exactly like Lord Shiva, who destroys the whole world out of anger. Purport. King Prithu found out the cause for the scarcity of food grains. He could understand that it was not the people's fault, for they were not lazy in executing their duties. Rather, the earth was not producing sufficient food grains. This indicates that the earth can produce sufficiently if everything is properly arranged. But sometimes the earth can refuse to produce food grains for various reasons. The theory that there is a scarcity of food grains due to an increase of population is not a very sound theory. There are other causes that enable the earth to produce profusely or to stop producing. King Prithu found out the proper causes and took the necessary steps immediately. Maiche uvacha prithu prajanam karunam nishamya paridevitam dirgam dajao kurushreshta nimittam son vipajita iti vyavasito bhujapa grihita sarasana sandade vishikam bhume krudastapura yatha. After hearing this lamentation and seeing the pitiable condition of the citizens, King Prithu contemplated this matter for a long time to see if he could find out the underlying causes. Having arrived at a conclusion, the king took up his bow and arrow and aimed them at the earth, exactly like Lord Shiva, who destroys the whole world out of anger. So here we see that King Prithu first of all started to contemplate about this situation. It is not that he just simply accepted that he would understand everything immediately without investigation, but rather investigation is taking place, and King Prithu came to the conclusion that the real problem here was not that the people were lazy, because usually the easiest thing to do is simply just criticize the people for not working hard enough. If there's some problem in the state, one can simply get away with it very easily by simply saying, "Oh, you people, you're not working hard enough. Now you have to work again harder. Make another plan, another 5-year plan or whatever, for making more production, doing better, increasing." But at the same time, if the organization or the leadership is not good, then you can go on making plans again and again, but they'll all fall apart. Because what really counts is that one does everything within a proper context of spiritual piety. Or not just piety, of course, but spiritual values of life. In the real organization, spiritual values count more than anything else. And I got a lesson of this from Srila Prabhupada once in Vrindavan. He was at that time coming and sitting under the tree and listening to us give class. So he used to listen when I was giving class. And if there was anything he thought needed correction, he would correct. Otherwise, he would listen. So one day I was giving class, and there were many respectable gentlemen from Vrindavan there. So at the end, they came up to Srila Prabhupada, and they were saying, "Why doesn't he manage?" Because he preaches well. So then Srila Prabhupada said, "Yes, I was thinking that myself." So then he called me in and he said, "You should manage here." And I said, "Me? Manage?" Being that was not my thing at that time. He said, "Yes." He said, "Preaching, if one can preach, he can manage. Good preaching means good management, and good management means good preaching. There is no question of managing well anything unless one has got the spiritual foundation upon which that management may be based." In other words, the most important aspect of existence, and most important aspect of the preaching, the most important aspect of management existence is preaching. If one inspires people to act, then there's no problem to manage them. But if people are not very inspired, or they don't really want to act because of so many incompatible things in their minds or contaminated things in the heart, then it is very, very hard to get anything going. Therefore, the general most important principle that at least we should all understand here in our ISKCON society is that by preaching, we will make everything work, not by big managerial organizational schemes. That is not to say we should not have management or organizational schemes, or they should be big at least. But yes, we should have these things. But without preaching, they have no value. And with preaching, they become successful, even if one has a little management scheme. But without preaching, it has no value. With preaching, it's successful. What counts is that everybody should like the idea of surrendering to Krishna. This is the real point. Everybody who's working for Krishna should like the idea of surrendering to Krishna. That's the real point. If you like the idea of surrendering to Krishna, then you'll serve him very nicely. And if you don't like the idea of surrendering to Krishna, then no matter what happens, you won't really get into serving him. Sometimes there are some who are problem cases. We can hardly find engagement for them. We give them this engagement, and no, I don't like that. Give them that engagement, no, I don't like that. Yeah, because one is never really satisfied unless he wants to serve Krishna. When you want to serve Krishna, there's no problem finding engagement for you. You run in and demand, give me engagement. And then so many engagements come from here, from there. Every manager knows we have at least 10,000 things we'd like to do at any one given moment in time. The only problem is to find the manpower to do it, or the funds to support it. The real problem is getting the people. If you've got people who want to do something, you can do anything. And how do people want to do something? Well, they understand it's for Krishna. And Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's the Supreme Lord. And we are his parts and parcels. And we are his eternal servants. And we are meant to satisfy him. And that is the perfection of life. If somebody understands like that, then he'll be very eager to do so many things for Krishna's satisfaction. He will desire to just run right out the door and work like anything for Krishna. Because he sees this is for the Supreme Lord. My master. Krishna is everybody's master and yet everybody's friend. He is the one whom we worship and serve, and yet he is everybody's best wishing friend. He's always thinking of our best interests. But a devotee who actually has some love for Krishna will always think of how to please Krishna most. He's thinking of how to please Krishna most, and Krishna is thinking how to please this devotee by making him pure, freed from unwanted contaminations, and giving him the best abilities to become fully absorbed on the spiritual platform of everlasting bliss. So there's a reciprocation there. A reciprocation between the Supreme Lord and his devotees. A reciprocation in love, where the devotee is thinking, I want to serve and satisfy Krishna, and Krishna is thinking, I want to satisfy this devotee. And Krishna actually thinks like that because he is the loving Supreme Personality of Godhead for everyone. He actually thinks about how to satisfy his devotees, because his devotees are always thinking about how to satisfy him. Therefore, sometimes Krishna will enter into the group of his devotees like the gopis. Once Krishna even dressed up like a gopi and entered into the garden area while the gopis were working there, and he was joking as if he was a gopi too. And they were just so blissful just to see Krishna joking in this way. They just couldn't, their hearts just would reach out to him at every moment, because they saw how he would reciprocate with them and how much love Krishna had for them. Actually, we cannot even understand how much love Krishna has for us. But you can understand to a certain extent sometimes when there's some difficult situation and Krishna just lifts us right out of it. Or Krishna just gives us that knowledge required to understand it perfectly well. Krishna actually, he just simply wants to make sure that all of his devotees get back home, back to Godhead. That all of his devotees are properly situated in their natural constitutional positions. Therefore, he makes so many arrangements. Therefore, he has sent Srila Prabhupada to bring this Krishna consciousness movement to us. Because he cares about his parts and parcels, conditioned souls. If it was not for Krishna desiring, this Krishna consciousness movement could not spread 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters. If it was not for Krishna's desire, nothing would happen. Because everything is totally dependent on the desire of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the Supreme Controller. We forget this. It's amazing how quickly we forget the fact that Krishna is the Supreme Controller. As soon as somebody comes and gives us some trouble, immediately, if you say, well, this must be Krishna's arrangement, then he thinks that, well, I can say that about anything. But it seems to me that this is just some rascaldom. But Krishna is the sanctioner of all activities. Krishna would not allow this person to succeed in giving troubles unless we were due to receive these troubles anyway. Krishna is the controller, yes. And we also have to suffer too. Sometimes we think that if Krishna is the controller, and if I'm his devotee, that means I should never suffer anything, not in the slightest. But that is not true. If you are Krishna's devotee and he's the controller, you still have to finish off whatever remaining karma and reactions may be there. It is not that Krishna will free one from all of those previously acquired reactions. No. It is not that if you surrender to Krishna, you throw your glasses away because your eyes all of a sudden just become perfected. It is not if you surrender to Krishna that if you were born with a bad heart, all of a sudden it just develops muscles and starts pumping like anything. It is not that if you surrender to Krishna and you were too short, that all of a sudden, shoop, you grow to the proper size. Yeah. It is not that if you surrender to Krishna, if you only had a brain this big, all of a sudden it just fills up your head and starts coming out your ears. Yeah. It is not that these things are a function of surrendering to Krishna. And yet sometimes people think like that. They think that if I surrender to Krishna, everybody should just throw themselves on the floor in front of me, offer flowers at me, sing my praises and glories day and night. And if I happen to say something nasty to them, they should just forgive me immediately. And if I happen to do something to harm them, they should just go out of their way to serve me. Sometimes we develop all these very strange conceptions. We think that surrendering to Krishna means that all the rules of human relationship and all the principles of social organization are no longer required. That all we do is surrender to Krishna and everything gets worked out. If I have a disease, just surrender to Krishna and Krishna will just cure it like that. If I have a political problem, I just surrender to Krishna and Krishna will make it go away. If there's a demon standing in front of me, I should just close my eyes and chant Nishinga, Nishinga. And then the demon will just dissolve in front of me. Sometimes we have these conceptions. But actually, Krishna helps those who help themselves. God helps those who help themselves. It is not that you just surrender to Krishna and expect him to do all the work. You surrender to Krishna and do the work. And while doing the work, you depend on Krishna for those results that may come. You just work as you're obligated, without attachment. But you try and succeed. And if Krishna is pleased upon you, he will offer the results if he wants. But we should not be attached. We should be fully detached and just offer to Krishna our service without demands. Without expectations, it must be like this, otherwise I cannot serve. It's like if one makes a demand. I must have the sun out, otherwise I cannot serve. Well, then he's in trouble. The sun does not come under our control. It is not that, all right, I'll surrender to Krishna and he'll make the sun come out. This is a purely materialistic understanding of God. That simply because I surrender to him, now that he should rearrange the whole material creation just to satisfy me. Doesn't work like that. We should work in such a way, realistically, not that we're going to change the fact that clouds come, but realistically we should work in such a way as to place ourselves in the most advantageous position to serve Krishna. Just like in the demon example. There's a demon standing in front of you, ready to pounce. It's not like you just stand in front of him with your eyes closed and go Nishringa, Nishringa. You may go Nishringa, Nishringa, but you should be doing it while moving rapidly in the opposite direction. Not that one is a fool and simply thinks, I just say Nrsingadev and this demon will melt. It's not like when Nrsingadev appeared, it was simply, Prahlad Maharaj said Nrsinga, Nrsinga, and Hiranyakashipu dropped in half. Nrsingadev himself came out of the pillar and tore up to pieces. So it is not that Lord Nrsingadev is going to appear before you just because there's a policeman here going to stop your Sankirtan distribution. It is not that God does things like this. He appears on schedule according to certain purposes. Therefore, if one is seeing here some trouble is going to take place, he avoids the trouble in the first place, so he does not put Krishna in such a position where Krishna has to protect you. That's like jumping off the roof and saying, Krishna will protect me before I hit. He will catch me. This is absurd. One must understand that we should not use Krishna like this. We cannot use Krishna. All right, I'll put myself in some dangerous condition and Krishna will have to save me. No, this is improper. One should think, I should not put Krishna in. I should not put myself in such a condition that Krishna will be bothered from his loving pastimes with his associates to have to save me. Besides, why should Krishna save me? What am I? I'm not worth much anyway. Real devotees will think. Of course they will think, but if Krishna doesn't save me, who will save me? But then Krishna within the heart will say, yes, but why don't you do like this? And then one will find his way out of the dangerous circumstance or situation. So Krishna will inspire one from within the heart to solve problems too, if one is sincerely just trying to serve him with love and devotion. It's like Maharaj Prithu here. Now the people, they were working hard. They were doing everything they were supposed to do. Then they found they weren't getting the result, even though they were doing everything right. So then they thought, let us surrender here to the higher authority. Anyway, he's incarnation of God. We'll actually be surrendering to the Supreme. And we'll ask him, please do something because we're doing what we're supposed to do. We just can't understand. It's way over our heads. We've done our duty. As far as we had to serve and work, we've done that properly. And now we need some help from some higher authority. Please somehow organize or arrange that. And immediately Maharaj Prithu thought, and then he did act for the sake of protecting the citizens. So similarly, we should just serve and try to work for the sake and satisfaction of the Supreme. And then Krishna will act to help us. Maybe in ways which we cannot directly see, but ways in which are indirect. Maybe by changing the consciousness of the persons who were giving trouble, or changing the consciousness of those who were supporting such persons who were giving us trouble, or making it more trouble for those persons to give us trouble than to not give us trouble. In this way, Krishna can arrange various means by which one can become peaceful, one can become satisfied and happy, without great struggle. Now, that means we should simply surrender to Krishna, yes, but go on serving him with full faith that everything will work out if we just go on serving Krishna without attachment. But that kind of faithfulness means you have to know perfectly well Krishna is the controller, even if something's happening you don't like. One should know ultimately everything will go on very nicely. One Prabhupada says, expect the worst, but hope for the best. That means short-term pessimism, long-term optimism. In the short term, expect the worst, but hope for the best in the long term. But yes, maybe the material nature will deliver me various troubles right now, but I know for sure it'll work out, because it always does. One who does good is never overcome by evil. Krishna says this in Bhagavad Gita. One who does good in this world is never overcome by evil. That which is bad, that which is evil, can never overcome one who's always engaged on the path of righteousness. Even though it may seem that there's trouble in that, or difficulty in that, for some short term or short period of time. But this is the understanding of an advanced devotee. Slightly advanced, not even a very advanced. Very advanced devotee sees auspiciousness in everything, because he sees ultimately everything is going on under Krishna's desire, just to organize and make everything work for the satisfaction of the conditioned souls. Therefore, he is not disturbed when Krishna is allowing various portions or personalities within the material world to accomplish that which they wish to accomplish. He sees they are also serving Krishna in their own way. They are also getting Krishna's facilities according to their own desires. So, it is not my business to disturb that. And Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, let not the wise disturb the minds of the ignorant who are engaged in fruitive results without proper knowledge. So, we should just go on with our devotional service, even if sometimes there may be some difficulties, sometimes there may be some confusing situations. We may not understand exactly what to do, how to do, when to do, why to do, anything. But we should just go on, trying to satisfy Krishna and please Krishna with our service all the time. And in this way, make a very successful attempt in this serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this whole Krishna consciousness movement is based on this principle of just serving Krishna, satisfying Krishna, despite any material considerations, good or bad according to mundane calculations. We should just try to go on satisfying Krishna. And this will bring about all success of life. So are there any questions? Yes. The more you advance, the more difficult it becomes? The more difficulties will come? Why? I never read this in any... But I've never read this anywhere. That the more you advance, the more difficulties come. Seems like the more you advance, the less difficulties are there. Because you see them all for what they are. You see, this is all just the material nature acting and interacting. The chemicals of the material world reacting with other chemicals of the material world, and personalities within the material world being disturbed or envious with other personalities in the material world. And then one understands it for what it is, and he's not so disturbed by it. Just like a small child may be sitting in a room, and he may hear from next door, and he becomes all disturbed and agitated. What is that? May start crying. But if he knew what it actually was, he wouldn't be disturbed at all. It's the machine for making dough, just turning around. So by knowledge, one realizes there's nothing to be afraid of. In Bengal there's a saying, there's nothing worse than death. And even that's not so bad. So why worry about anything? So the more one is advanced, the less he worries. But that's just the material nature. That's because he was trying to do something fantastic. He could have just stayed in Radha Damodar temple without the slightest difficulties, couldn't he? But he decided to do something outrageous. He was going to go to the Western world and spread Krishna consciousness. So when you want to take up such a task, you should know it for certain you're going to have some difficulty. Yes, in case of, for instance, one has a choice, shall I do this, and it's your karma to suffer. So Krishna may recommend as super soul, why don't you do like that? But that's not Krishna putting you in trouble. That's your karma putting you in trouble. And the super soul simply making sure that you're getting your karma. That's all. He's neutral. Like the judge. You're supposed to get money from inheritance, take it. You're supposed to go to jail for some crime, take it. Super soul says, yes, now you should do like this. Oh, too bad. It's not his fault. It's your fault. It's your karma. The karma comes up. Now it is 8:24 on the 14th of May, 1987. On the karmic list, in 1/2 an hour, some suffering will come when you try to take prasadam. This is just function of time. The super soul is just making sure it's all fulfilled. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. What do you mean foolishness? You mean just doing stupid things? No, I meant that you can increase your suffering by sinful act. You just mean like a stupidity, a foolishness. That's just not sinful, but it's just completely stupid. Yeah, that also makes suffering. It's ignorance. Ignorance creates suffering. Simply by coming to the that's because you're in the mode of ignorance. So being in the mode of ignorance, you make suffering. Because ignorance simply means suffering. When one comes to the mode of goodness, that's illuminated by knowledge. And knowledge means being freed from suffering condition by good intelligence. So by being foolish and in ignorance, yes, one creates suffering. Therefore, nobody should ever stay in the mode of ignorance. Yes. Was war der letzte Teil? Was war die letzte Teil von der Frage? What is this last part? Huh? Oh, we would know if somebody returned. How can we know? Who's we? Who is the we that's supposed to know? Just us in general? Or somebody special? Us in general, we may not know. But spiritual master of a disciple, he will know. Pure devotee, he will know. Because Krishna will tell him. Because the super soul tells pure devotees what they need to know. Huh? It's the super soul. That's the super soul. think the Paramatma is so limited? You can only do one thing at a time? You think like that? You can do more than one thing at a time? No? I mean, when you're eating, you're not breathing or talking, or when you're listening to the class, you don't sometimes sew something or whatever, I don't know. So you can do two things at once. You think Krishna can't? And even if you couldn't do two things at once, you think Krishna can't? He's doing millions and billions and countless trillions and infinite amount of things all at the same time. He's not only in your heart, he's in somebody else's heart too. He's in everybody's heart. And he's doing everything all at the same time. And why he can't observe what you're doing and at the same time sanction what you're doing? Upadrashta, Anumanta, it's straight out of Bhagavad Gita. Upadrashta, he oversees. Anumanta, he permits, he sanctions. So that's two things, and it's exactly the answer to your question. And that's straight out of Bhagavad Gita. So how come you didn't know that? Yes? Disciple can what? Spiritual master? Like a rag? What do you mean? You mean like a cow? You use a cow by taking milk. Well, I'm 0 for 2. So what do you mean? The disciple follows the instruction of the spiritual master and advances. So you mean that the disciple will, you use the word use, but that's not the best word. The disciple will take the benefit from the spiritual master by following his instructions. Yes. But what's the question? Well, you got me. I can't figure it out. You can use spiritual master for your sense gratification if you want. Sometimes they keep spiritual masters like teddy bears. He's just nice to have around, you know. Other times they just use spiritual masters like it's like a figurehead. Symbolic head. Or sometimes they use spiritual master for having a good time, laughing a lot, being blissful, eating Mahaprasad. So this is not good. But to utilize the spiritual master's instructions for your spiritual benefit is exactly how you're supposed to use spiritual master. So that's good. Okay? Okay. Yes. Well, we can't guarantee your husband's not going to go away. Yes, householders are not good enough trained because the society we're coming from does not train them. In other words, you're trained in the mundane society to be unfaithful and whimsical and lusty, amongst a million other bad qualities which are too numerous to mention here. So when you come to Krishna consciousness, you bring all of that into Krishna consciousness with you. And here you may hear about how, but here you mainly hear how you should surrender to Krishna. You don't hear about how you should be a good husband or wife too much. That's in the books sometimes, and that's kind of understood, yeah, but like it's not, we stress it a lot. It's not really our business to stress now. You should be faithful husband and faithful wife and be lovingly devoted and serve Krishna very blissfully like this. And the glories of, we don't sing the glories of household life. It's just not part of our training process. But actually somebody should do like that. I'm not going to do it, but somebody should do it. And that would be helpful in that regard. But still, there's all that training. And if one falls into Maya, he says, what do I need this wife for? She's useless. After all, we got these regulative principles. What's the use of getting married anyway? Sometimes people think like that. So, there's nothing that we can really do about that. You either surrender to Krishna or you don't. And everything is like that, whether you're a householder, brahmachari, vanaprastha, sannyas. You got to surrender to Krishna. It's not like the grihastas don't have to surrender to Krishna. They all have to surrender to Krishna. Everybody's got to surrender to Krishna, and everybody has to follow all the principles, and everybody has to follow the programs. And as soon as one is not doing that, or he thinks he shouldn't do that, then all of this social arrangement we have breaks down. So that is a problem. The problem is always the same thing. One doesn't surrender to Krishna. Therefore, there are so many problems. So therefore, the solution is surrender to Krishna. Last question. Yes? Look, in dangerous situations, generally you don't think about it. You just act. It's not like, when you're faced with a danger, then you get an idea of what to do, then you think, well, wait a minute. As the razor blades of material nature are heading towards you, you think, wait a minute. Was that idea of saving myself from my mind? Or did that come from the supersoul? Now, if it came from the supersoul, I should get out of here fast. But if it came from my mind, maybe I should just stick around and have my head chopped off. Sorry to always turn everything into some absurdity, but more or less that's what happens when, one is on the mental platform. He thinks, well, if danger comes, then will it be my mind or will it be the supersoul? But this is just mental platform. When a danger comes, and if Krishna wants to save you, he'll say, get moving! And you'll go. And you won't even think, is that my mind or not? It'll be obvious. So don't worry, Masucha. Have no fear. We declared that the last question. Hare Krishna.